And again, want to thank Craft East, Virtual Makers Forum, for the invitation. I remember a few years ago meeting with probably some of the people who are on this call at the Javits Center in New York. We were doing some training for wholesale markets. And so it's a pleasure to be back with you again. And thanks for the introduction, Greg. I've got a screen up here with my picture on it again. I am the founder and the owner of artsyshark.com. Feel free to visit. We certainly have tons of free information there, lots of articles for artists who are in business. And follow me at Artsy Shark or Artsy_Shark on Instagram, and stay in touch through social media. So I want to dive right into this. I've got a lot to present today. I'm going to do a presentation first, and then afterwards we'll have a Q&A. So if you've got questions, certainly submit those through, and then Greg will be jumping back on. This presentation is primarily about possibilities. We know that sales channels are expanding, and the individual channels are expanding and new channels are coming on board. And this is going to offer incredible opportunities for artists and makers of all types. There's so much to know. There's so much in transition. And I'm going to be talking about some of that today. Of course, this has been in the works for years. The internet technology has been changing the face of markets for years, and it's been putting artists in a very beneficial position because we can act as the CEOs of our own small businesses. The artists are in control. They get to decide where they want to participate in the marketplace. And it's not like the old days when you had to wait for a gatekeeper or a decision maker to allow you to enter a market or to be involved or to show or sell your work. So there's a lot of autonomy. There's a lot of self-direction involved. And this is all a very good thing. It puts us in a strong position, making the decisions in business for what is best for us and what we want to do. I'm going to start out with talking about the wholesale marketplace. And the reason I'm doing that is because many of you are already involved in it. Now, I'm not going to take a really deep dive into wholesaling because you may already know a lot of these things that are happening, but I want to recognize that. I want to speak about that. And I also want to show some options that are coming up and recognize what's going on, certainly with the Craft Alliance. We know that there have been a sea change that's been going on for years because the trade show industry in itself has been consolidating. And that's been happening as some shows have simply gone out of business. Some other shows have been absorbed or snapped up by buyers who are looking for shows to acquire. And other smaller shows have been combined together so that they can more effectively reach their audience. This is just to overcome costs and reduced crowds at live markets. We know it's expensive for retailers to go to market. They've got to leave their store. They've got to travel. They have hotel costs. It's very, time consuming, and there's truthfully nothing better than being live and meeting the maker and talking to the artist and looking through their booth and handling their merchandise. I love that. I certainly spent many years wholesaling myself, can appreciate the relationships that you get by shaking someone's hand, having lunch with them, talking with them, making that face-to-face contact. We're trying to replace what we can online. COVID certainly put a huge chink into this, and it started markets going down because they were not allowed to open. And so they were forced to create digital markets. Some of them, like New York Now, have absorbed other shows, like the Surtex art licensing show has been folded into New York Now. The greeting card show folded into New York Now, so that by doing this, they're absorbing smaller shows, they're filling booth spaces that might have been empty because some artists are getting out of the business. Now, we know the wholesale market has really had a rough patch in the last year. I've talked to artists who unfortunately have said, all my wholesale accounts have gone out of business. The stores are closed. They can't survive. Or, I need to start again, or I need to find other ways to make money. So whether you wholesale exclusively and you want to just look at ways to, kind of ramp that back up again, or whether you're an artist who wants to consider additional streams of income, this presentation is for you. We're going to talk about other channels, other streams, and ways to diversify your business, which can be a very stabilizing force. When you have more than one way of earning, it helps to, fill your account if one market is not working out really well that month, or if you need to have multiple streams to earn enough to pay your business expenses. So we know that live trade shows have opened back up. Certainly the Atlanta market, there's the New York markets, there's several large ones that are in the States, but they're very, very aware that they need to have that digital component. And I've also seen, the Canadian, the Craft East, has created a wonderful online marketplace. I want to give kudos to them. They're bringing in the makers, the artists, the videos, introductions to them, presenting their work beautifully online. This is how people have been shopping, and they increasingly are shopping more and more often. We know that there are buyers of all types out there. Some are seasonal, some are in certain areas of the country that, they need to buy at times that are off market week. And so they need that online buying 24/7, 365. They can shop at 3 in the morning if they want to. And so this hybrid type of approach that's live and online that have different benefits to them is something that's taking place in wholesaling. I love to see it. I think it's a huge benefit, and it's also happening across other channels. We're going to take a look at that in a minute. I just want to also take a look at the wholesale portals. And I realize that there are other presentations that are going to happen during this forum. So I'm not going to get deeply into what the wholesale portals are going to be offering, but we know that this is increasingly becoming mainstream. And I've listed a couple of the different markets that are online over here on the left. You can check them out. I did create the largest directory on the planet of places for artists and makers to sell online. And you can see the URL to that's right at the bottom of this screen, wheretoselLart.com. Feel free to jump in there. It's completely free to use. It has categories of different places to sell. So to the trade, retail, and so forth. Check it out and see what might be suitable for you. So what I love to see about these wholesale portals is that they're very friendly to indie brands. They might be looking for Black-owned businesses. They might be looking for certain themes or to highlight certain brands or makers. And I think that's an excellent way to broaden, to open opportunities to people who haven't previously been able to jump into this channel and to wholesale their market, or jump into the wholesale market and to wholesale their goods and their brands to retailers who are looking to handle a diverse number of merchandise lines. We also know that some of these portals are juried, or they may have a wait list. So they're looking for high quality work. You're going to want to put your best presentation forward. You're going to want to make sure that you're jurying with a good selection of your art or craft. Their fee structures vary. Some are going to be monthly, yearly. They might have commission structures or advertising fees built in. And one of the benefits I think that they really offer to the artist who's got a wholesale business is they're going to vet those buyers. We all know that there are people who just want to walk into your booth and buy for themselves, or they're really not who they seem to be. And so we want to avoid working with people like that, prevent any kind of fraud. But they also do have some benefits to retailers who can't see work in person. Maybe they want to buy a small sampling of your art, just to see it in person, to handle it, make sure it's perfect for them. They also offer some terms that are very favorable to retailers, and they've got the ability to do that. So I see this as really a win-win for exhibitors and retailers as well. And I'm looking forward to those portals coming up with even more innovative ways to show your merchandise and help you sell. So let's jump into another channel right now, art licensing. This may or may not be something that is appropriate for your art. Licensing is actually a type of doing business where you allow the use of your designs by a third party through a contractual agreement that specifies those designs. It's usually like a 2D, although 3D makers can certainly license. Licensing is huge. Disney licenses, sports teams license. You see them on merchandise all over the place. It is a multi-billion-dollar industry. And it can be somewhat of a passive stream of income for artists, which is nice if they've delivered their images to the licensor, or I'm sorry, as the licensor, they've delivered their images to the licensee, who might be a manufacturer, and they're just collecting fees through royalties that are usually paid on a quarterly basis. There are other fee structures. You can look into that by Googling it. You're keeping your copyright, so you retain that ownership. And the contracts do specify the geographic area, whether this is in Canada, North America, worldwide, so that you understand, what you're licensing for, and you can use your designs for other products. People who earn through licensing as their sole business generally have many contracts going on at the same time. And the average contract length is several years, 2 to 3 years. So it could be a way for you to make some money working with manufacturers and doing something that might be, another stream of income in addition to retailing or wholesaling. The industry overall has been suffering. Certainly the Surtech show in New York, which was one of the main drivers of networking between buyers and the artists who licensed, were that was folded into New York Now, and that happened because the number of exhibitors had declined. So, we are seeing that this is an industry that's in flux. Again, if it's right for you, you can look into it. You might want to get involved with an online trade portal. This is an easier way to jump into it if you have a portfolio that is appropriate for merchandise. Art Licensing Show is a trade-only portal that has a password protected area so that your portfolio is not exposed to the general public. It's protected. They're introducing you to art directors and people in the trade who are looking to license. Artlicensing.com is another trade portal. So this is more or less for manufactured type of merchandise. It could be wall decor, clothing, fabric, greeting cards, gift items, all kinds of different products. But there's another opportunity that's involved, that is available to artists who want a license, and that involves the art publishing industry. So if you're not familiar with art publishers, they're companies that have been around, some of them for many, many years. And what they produce is generally in the wall decor category. So they're making posters and prints and framed art. And some of these publishers, McGaw Graphics, Image Conscious, Wild Apple, it could be Canadian Art Prints, Win Devon. There are a number of art publishers that have been around for a long time. They also suffered from technology coming in because the print on demand industry reduced the demand for store inventories. And so they've needed to reinvent themselves. However, they are still very much alive, and they're looking for artists whose works might be appropriate for them. So you can go to my directory at Where to Sell Art and look for the art publishing category, or you can look at some of these providers here, go to their websites, type in artist submissions, find the form or the directions on how you might apply, and see if you could be accepted. I worked with an artist not long ago who just licensed 20 images to McGaw Graphics, and he was one of their featured artists in last fall's new release. So all of these, I know that the ones that are shown, I know do accept online submissions from artists, and you can learn more information by visiting their website. So that's a potential for anybody who's got wall decor designs. So I'm going to jump into a huge category, which many of you have probably been involved with at one time or another, because so many artists and makers who sell, they get started at retail. And retail has gone through a huge shift in the past year. Many of the art fairs and festivals that were opening, that they would cater to the public in all areas of Canada, the US, wherever you might travel to sell your work, they were hit early in the year, just before the warm weather, when many of the shows would be opening. I'm here in Florida. There were a couple of shows that happened early in the year that were able to get up and running live, and then everything pretty much stopped in March. That threw the entire industry into a position where they had to either cancel or postpone their shows. And the art promoters and festival directors that had events that would be later on in the year, say summer or into fall, they had to scramble and figure out what they were going to do with their events, and whether they were simply going to close or whether they were going to try to offer artists a way to sell. And artists who were simply working in this channel as, art show artists who make their living on the road, many of them were devastated. They lost lots of money in the fees, in income that they expected. And so they had to really scramble as well. One of the solutions that we saw was the rise of virtual art fairs and festivals. And these were a wide variety of attempts to try to get the public and fairgoers to come online and shop there instead of going to those live events, which no longer were happening. And so I have to give a lot of credit to show promoters. I actually participated in an industry-wide discussion with a lot of the top show promoters, some of whom were in Canada, others in the States, figuring out what to do, how best to serve their artists. And I will say that one really good takeaway that I have from those discussions is that a survey of those show directors found that the number one concern that they had was the health of the artists' businesses. So rather than being overly involved in whether they were going to make money, they want their artists to stay alive. They want their businesses to stay alive. They want them to thrive. They want them to continue in business, because we all need each other to be able to put on quality shows. So a hybrid model evolved, and this will be going forward. And I think that this is strengthening the industry overall. We know that some live events have started to open up. It just depends on where you are, and what your local government is allowing. But we're seeing that websites are arising. Some of the event platforms, Eventini is one, Booth Central is another. Those are frequently referred to by those fair promoters. And those are platforms that have artist uploads of their work. You could have Zoom calls going on. You can have a virtual booth. They're working on 3D type of booths. They allow a mutual checkout between all artists, which means somebody going to this virtual show on Eventini, for example, they could shop in one booth, put something in the shopping cart, then go to another booth, put something in the shopping cart, and then check out all of their merchandise together, which means they don't need to leave and go to different artist websites. And so that reduces the friction in the checkout process. And that's been a real boon to online shopping. And that keeps people on a trusted platform where they're going to continue to shop. So I think that that's a real plus. I want to give a lot of credit to the many show promoters and the artists who participated. But there have been some other things going on with these hybrid shows that offer huge opportunities to artists, and this is where you come in. So let's move to the next slide, and I want to talk about where there are some enormous opportunities for you to jump into this right now. So what happens when there are art fairs that are live, but they're also offering that online shopping component? Well, they may require the artist to show up live at the show in order to also be shown online, but that is not always the case. So you could be in Canada and you could apply to, let's say, a show in Chicago. And if you could be simply an online vendor, you could participate without having to travel, without having to ship any of your merchandise. And it's just simply a virtual participation, which gives you a lot more latitude in being involved in shows that you could never participate in before. We also know that when these promoters are putting on a live show, maybe that lasts a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, which is very typical, but there's normally longer selling times for the virtual event. So the show might last for a month online. And that's going to give you a much greater chance of selling your work. You're also going to have a global audience attending. So if you had let's say a show in Nova Scotia, that would be great for everybody who lives locally. But if it was also going to be online, I could be here in Florida and I could be shopping it. You're going to attract an audience who normally doesn't attend live shows like this. And for many of these show promoters, that means bringing in millennials and other younger shoppers who are used to shopping online, but they're not going to walk an art show. And that's definitely a benefit because many art shows and festivals have been seeing an increasingly older attendance live. So it gives artists a chance to enter the space. And we also know that what's happened with this huge shakeout across these different channels, that a lot of the artists who applied to shows and ended up getting locked out because of the pandemic, they dropped out of the applicant pool. And here's where you might have an enormous opportunity if you retail. We know that some of these applicant pools have dropped by 50%. So some of the big shows that you always wanted to get into that might have been aspirational for you, and you thought, well, I'll never get juried in, either I've been waitlisted, I've never got in, or I've always been juried out. You might want to give it another try because they're looking at a much smaller application pool. This could be your chance to get into top shows that you always wanted to apply to. Of course, you're going to have to put your best foot forward, but I would encourage you to give it a chance, and try to get into those shows that were previously not available to you because they're looking at having to select from a smaller number of artists. And another really important thing, and I think this is huge, not only for the show directors and artists, but also for specialty audiences. And let's look at that next. And that is the fact that these platforms have been now built for shows that are putting on the hybrid events. So they've got their live event center or their outdoor venue, wherever it is that they're holding that live event, that now they have a platform to show art. Well, do they only want to be showing art for a duration of their show or maybe a month? No, they're going to be using them more often. And here's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. You may be aware of the Smithsonian Craft Show. It's in the US, it's in the Washington, D.C. area. It's an extremely high-end, highly juried show that has been around for many years, extremely difficult to get into. And last October, they did hold a virtual market to replace the in-person event. But look, here's something that they've just brought out, just announced. I received an email for another show going on, put on by the Smithsonian folks, who are a well-known brand. It's happening April 24th through May 1st. And where is it? It is strictly online. It's called Craft Optimism. And so this is an example of a promoter now in the online space being able to have multiple shows per year that are strictly online. And this gives you, as the artist, additional chances to get in on them. And I want you to look at the themed nature of this show. So this is a climate conscious makers market. And this is 100 artists are participated. And this is being promoted as a show that's in the theme of, concern about climate change and people who want to buy from makers who are upcycling or reusing, or maybe the theme or cause behind what they're doing has a climate theme. So you'll see an increasing number of themes. Might be a social justice theme. It might be that they're looking, at people of color or particular cultures that they want to present their work. And this is a very strong move into a marketplace overall that sees buyers who are saying that they want to buy from brands and from markets that are supporting what they believe in and the causes that they feel related to. So if that's a potential market for you, this is a huge new opportunity for you to get involved. And you can find these online. You can look for markets and online shows, artfairinsiders.com, for example. They're going to have lists of shows coming up. They have a whole new category called virtual shows. So you might want to check that out, see if there's something there for you. Now, I'm going to jump from the promoters and the hybrid shows to strictly online. Now, online opportunities have been huge for years, and they're absolutely exploding at this point. We know that artist websites are increasingly in demand, and website providers are seeing a huge amount of business, more than ever. I've been talking with some of the people who run these companies, and they're like, we have an enormous influx of artists. You need your own website. That's very important. That's headquarters for you. But there are third-party platforms of all types that you can get involved with: online galleries, auction sites, marketplaces. There's Etsy, there's Saatchi, there's UGallery. There's many places that you can additionally list your work, and those give you other outlets. Print on demand is another huge marketplace, and many of the print on demand providers integrate seamlessly with platforms like Shopify and Squarespace. And so what they allow you to do is to put images of your work on product, which gets printed on demand and fulfilled by another party. So this may or may not be something that's right for you. It can be somewhat of a passive stream because you're not fulfilling those orders. There's different models where you may get a certain amount for your work printed on a pillow or on wearable art, for example, or you might be able to choose the markup. So you want to look into those options. And again, if you go to wheretoselllart.com, you'll see a lot of print-on-demand sites. You can check them out. They're always coming out with more options. It's been a very versatile industry. Social media is enormous, and Instagram is the #1 driver of this. It is the best platform for artists and makers. There are now shoppable posts on Instagram, which allow the user to stay on platform and check out. There are other shoppable posts that jump to the artist's website. But again, we want to reduce friction. And if you look it up, there's information on Instagram. You'll have to build a Facebook shop in order to do this. Facebook owns Instagram. And so they're just kind of integrating that right into the Instagram platform. You may have gone shopping on Instagram before, but it is absolutely cutting edge. It is a huge driver of online sales. And I would imagine that you could probably link that through, to your retail shop or maybe even a wholesale site. I'd love to see wholesale buyers that are on social media being able to log on as well. So I'm going to shift gears here. And next, I'm going to talk about one of the biggest topics out there, and that is, I have one more here. I didn't realize I was missing a slide here. Let's talk about high tech before I jump onto my next channel. Some of the presentation that we are seeing online is just astonishing. We are seeing 3D worlds, which are now available. I'm looking into an app here called Art Placer. This artist, Leslie Kell, recently had a virtual show hung on this. Now, this is a screen grab from a 3D gallery through which you can travel at will. You go in front of a work of art, you click a button, it tells you about that work of art and has a checkout literally right on this app, where you can put pieces of art right into your shopping cart and purchase. So there's amazing presentation that's going on. Certainly many of the sites are using augmented reality so that they show art that's on your wall. You're going to look at a piece of art, hold your phone up, see how that's going to look in your own space. And so these are all making it seamless to shop online. All right, let's jump to my next channel, which is a huge topic out there, and it is art and the blockchain. If you've been seeing the news lately, you might have noticed that there's been enormous headlines about Beeple's digital art in the form of an NFT being sold for $69 million online. That's, astonishing. He's now the third biggest selling artist. And so this is big news. So what are NFTs, or Nifties, as they're called in the industry? Well, this is art that is in digital form that is sold on the Ethereum blockchain. Blockchain is the basis of new technology that's going to come out, and I'm going to talk a lot about that in just a minute. So artists are creating digital art. It might be static art. It could be art that has augmented reality or virtual reality integrated into it. We're seeing an image here by Mark-O-Matic. He's an artist I recently interviewed. He's made over $50,000 in the past year selling 3 pieces of art on an NFT marketplace. Let's take a look at some of those, the platforms, and there are many of them. Super Rare, OpenSea, Maker's Place, Rareable. Some of these are juried. Some of these are open to anyone who wants to sell. And the NFT stands for non-fungible token. It is integrated into the work of art, which makes it an addition of one. And that is an artificial way of creating scarcity so that they become collectible. And they are being sold for cryptocurrency on these platforms, usually Ethereum, but there are other, what they call altcoins, other cryptocurrencies that they can be purchased for on these platforms. This is a huge marketplace that's breaking open at this time. And although NFTs have been in existence for several years, it's getting tons of attention. It's a little bit complex to get involved with making them and setting them up. So what I would suggest is if you go to OpenSea.io, they have what's called the non-fungible token Bible. And that is going to give you, it's a PDF that you can download. It's going to give you tons of information about what is this type of digital art? How does it work? How does it sell? What does ownership mean? What is the blockchain and how can you create it? Now, blockchain technology actually extends beyond this kind of NFT sales. And it is the future as far as transactions in the finance industry, banking, insurance, logistics, and the underpinning of all types of technology that's going on today. There's a lot of controversy about it because blockchain, and you might have heard of Bitcoin, you might have heard of Ethereum, you might have heard of DeFi, which is decentralized finance. There are many projects going on. Blockchain is a technology which is trustless, which means that it is verifiable and it is not changeable. It can't be hacked. It is actually the basis for the Internet 3.0 and technologies and apps and services and businesses that will be built on top of the blockchain. And that is going to be driving technology and the way that we do business across the board and as artists going forward. But there's a huge question that's come out and a lot of people very upset about the energy consumption that's being taken up. And Bitcoin is a perfect example of that. So I had questions myself about it. The other day, I did an interview with Shidan Gorin, who is the founder and CEO of Global Blockchains Technology Corporation. And I asked him, what about the energy that Bitcoin, for example, is producing? Because this is not climate friendly. This is definitely a problem. And he said, yes, that type of proof of work protocol that Bitcoin is built on is not sustainable. So if we had technologies built on that, they would be producing or using rather an enormous amount of energy that is not sustainable and it's not wise. It would be actually immoral to use. However, technologies are shifting. The Ethereum blockchain is moving from proof of work to proof of stake, which is taking a much lower amount of energy. There are other DeFi projects such as Cardano and Polkadot, which are already using proof of stake. So that's a lower energy consumption. And there are other technologies that are being developed right now, which may actually put us in a position eventually where it is a net lower energy use than what's being used now. Let me give you an example of that. Credit card transactions right now, for example, they take a small amount of energy, but there are a lot of people that work for these companies and they may be in lower level accounting jobs or they're working on their computers. They're, the people who are approving these types of transactions and dealing with this. If all of those jobs went away because blockchain technology and smart contracts automated them, then all of the energy involved in the buildings and the lights and the heat and the computers of all those jobs went away. We could eventually end up in a position where we are actually having a net savings of energy. And that is the objective. So how ubiquitous is blockchain? It's everywhere. Let's take a look at some headlines. PayPal, you can actually buy Bitcoin on PayPal. They've been invested in blockchain. Visa, this is the Mastercard, Visa credit card. This is a headline from a year ago. They're involved in blockchain. Whole Foods, Bed Bath & Beyond, major retailers, they're accepting Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies in payment. There's a survey out there, 1/3 of small businesses now accept cryptocurrency. You can see how mainstream it is. Let's look at some more headlines. Mastercard is using blockchain technology. American Express joins blockchain. The largest banks around the world are getting involved in blockchain, and actually the whole purpose and the function of banks may be changing as our currencies change. So this is all kind of a look into the future, what's going on across the board in finance, transactions, and certainly if you're an artist in business, you are involved in financial transactions. But how does this affect you as an artist? I want to look at blockchain technology and what the benefits are to an industry which has historically been very opaque, especially in the area of fine art. You might not be involved in that. You might be a maker who's selling your work wholesale, and that, and that certainly is fine. But if we look at kind of the way that fine art has been sold, the gallery relationships that artists have had. There are artists who are represented by galleries who do not even tell them who the buyers are for their art. And so they're ignorant of who their collectors are. Personally, I don't think that that's a good idea. I know that that happens. Blockchain is going to open all of this up. It's currently being used to authenticate art, to establish the provenance, which is the history of ownership. It's going to have information about the condition of art. This prevents fraud. It's going to make transactions online open up, and the trust factor is going to increase. We're going to be able to track art while it's in transit. Blockchain is being used extensively by people involved in logistics and all kinds of shipping and tracking and supply chain businesses. There's auction houses are going to be able to use this to verify authentic bids. There's been huge complaints in auction houses about shills and other, methods of manipulating and increasing bids that are not really authentic. So it's going to resolve that problem. Here's something I love, and that is that smart contracts that, let's say, accompany an NFT that's sold online. That NFT is a collectible. It's being purchased by someone who now owns it. They resell it, and that secondary sale is automatically going to pay, say, 10% to the artist. So you're getting paid an amount on sales that are made on the secondary market. And I think that that's really important. This is something that artists have not been receiving for many, many years. And it is something that musical artists are using as well. And I think it's very beneficial to us as an industry. And there's also an option for opening this to things like using your art as collateral, or allowing for crowdfunding and selling fractional shares. What if you owned a small portion of that $69 million NFT? So these are all possibilities that are coming up. And as we learn more about blockchain, as this becomes more mainstream in the art market and in our world, I think you're going to see that there's some huge benefits. One of those is just the decentralized nature of blockchain, and that mirrors the decentralized nature of our industry. When I started this presentation, I talked about how artists are now the CEOs of their own business, how we are the ones who are in business for ourselves. We are making decisions. We're not looking for someone else to run our business. Blockchain decentralizes the markets as well, putting us in charge. And so I think that that's something that needs to happen. I think that's very beneficial. And I think that you're going to find going forward that these are new possibilities and new opportunities for you as artists in general. So that is a wrap on my presentation. I can stop sharing right now. So I'm going to go back on with you, Greg. I can certainly go back and I guess share my screen again if somebody has a question about a certain topic.
But yeah, if anybody wants to go back.
Yeah, I mean, I could always do that, but Yeah, this is a lot. I mean, I threw a lot of information out there.
Yeah, that discussion about blockchain and NFTs is, I just want to say like thanks and congrats, because I think that's the best explained that I've seen it, just in terms of how it's affecting artists. Seriously.
I will say this. I am not an expert on blockchain. I have been looking into it for 6 months now. It is very complex. Thank you very much. I appreciate what you're saying. I think this is something that artists need to look into for themselves, because it's pretty complex.
Yeah, but clearly lots of opportunities there in terms
Tons.
of how you can apply it in the art world and in, I don't know, digital art. We've seen it applied to digital visual art, but also music and video clips and all kinds of things. So yeah, tons of applications for it. That's really interesting.
Mhm.
Do we have any questions from anybody who has been sitting by, sort of taking all this in? I haven't had anything come into the Q&A yet. Seems like everybody's just kind of absorbing all the information. There's a question in the chat there.
Okay.
Other than OpenSea, are you aware of a course out there to teach how to get started with that?
With NFTs?
Yeah.
That's an excellent question. And the only tutorials that I've seen are on YouTube. And I can't vouch for how complete or accurate they are. One of the things about these platforms is because they're decentralized, it's not like there's a central body who's running them. So if you go on Super Rare, for example, it's not like they have a huge staff that's running everything. There are engineers who are involved to make sure that everything functions. But another thing that you might do besides going to tutorials and going to that NFT Bible is to get involved in discussion forums and communities. Super Rare is on Discord, and you can jump onto Discord and start getting involved in conversations with other artists who are creating NFTs. And that's going to be a huge source of information for you. And there's also an NFT area on Reddit where a ton of people are discussing it. So those might be some resources for you to use.
Okay. If anybody's not familiar with Discord, it's a discussion forum essentially, right? It's an app or a web-based discussion forum for like very specific topics that you can join.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. And same for Reddit, I guess, in a way. You can just kind of jump into a forum and join the discussion.
Right.
There's a question about, do you work with artists on private consultation? Maybe we should direct people to your website for those.
That's actually what I make. That's the way I run my business. Yes, that is mostly what I do. The funny thing is I've got 2 artists I'm working with right now, and they're like, I want to make NFTs. Not that I'm the expert on doing it, but we're kind of working through it. Yes, you can go to artsyshark.com and get in touch with me there. Thank you.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. Is there any other questions, folks?
I have a question for you. Is anybody out there using any of these methods? Is anybody involved in a virtual show?
Oh, yeah.
Have you been online selling print on demand? Are you selling through your website? Are you on third-party sites? I mean, there's so much going on. It's almost like overload. You have to sort it out and figure out, where do I really want to get involved?
Yeah, I'm just scrolling through our list. I recognize obviously a lot of names of people who are wholesaling through our events and through events that we've supported and promoted for people to use. But if anybody has any input on these different tools that they've used, whether it's licensing, print on demand. Leona says she uses print on demand, Printify with Etsy.
Yeah, so, Printify is one. Printful is another one that integrates with a lot of different platforms. Makers moving from wholesale. I should open up the chat and just look at this myself. Yeah, makers moving from wholesale and in-person retail to strictly online retail. I can see why that's happening, and certainly with COVID, I think it makes sense. I had an interesting conversation with an artist the other day, and she said, well, I'd really like to go to a retail show but I have health issues and I don't really want to be out there, even with a mask on. I don't want to be at a show. I totally get that. I think things will change once people are getting the vaccine and once things, kind of move societally. And we are kind of stuck online. Personally, I think there's an enormous benefit in in-person connection. I'm sure you all know that. I mean, there's nothing better than sitting down, having dinner with somebody. I'd rather do that, in person than on Zoom. But I think that that's very true. And I think that online retail is what is accounting for the enormous demand for artist websites. I encourage everyone to have their own website, their own proprietary website. So someone was involved in a virtual trade show. I wonder if that was successful for you. I don't know if you want to share
Susan,
that.
Can you share if it was any good for you?
And sometimes trade shows, whether they're virtual or whether they're in person, that's your initial contact. Yeah. You got to do a lot of follow-up, and you may be making a sale 3 months down the line. Well, so you don't always know what the answers are.
Yeah, we brought a group of people, I'll say, so we usually exhibit with a group in kind of an incubator space that we host at the Toronto Gift Show, and they've been doing virtual shows. And we found really the big advantage between the fall and the winter show is that they started giving you opportunities to get leads lists. So people who would visit your site could opt in, visit your virtual booth, could opt in to leave their email address with you. So I think of any sales that happened in our booth, it was from doing the outreach. We got very few, chat notifications saying, hey, can I see this product? It was really from the interaction after the fact when you can reach out via email and send somebody your catalog.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's exactly what it is. Sales is all about follow-up. And then certainly once you've been in a virtual trade show, if you're collecting your list, it's pre-show marketing. It is, what are you doing during the market to publicize? I think one of the biggest problems that people have with online selling is that there are millions and millions and millions of other people out there trying to sell all kinds of things. So there's just a lot of noise. And so what you need to do as, a seller of whatever it is that you sell is to really cultivate your list, work even through email marketing, through messaging. I've definitely seen trade shows that are saying, message the artist or, get into a chat, trying to encourage that interaction and following up with that.
Yeah, I think Susan's kind of echoing that. She said she had better success with her direct mailing than actually the virtual trade show itself. And
I love that, because who gets anything in their mailbox anymore?
Yeah, exactly.
Now it's like the new, it's come back around.
Yeah, well, and that's, so Dave, who just chimed in to us in the chat, he is one of the folks who was with us in our incubator virtual booth for Toronto, and he's emailed out 250 catalogs. So Dave did some really intense sifting through the leads list to really qualify those buyers by checking out their website. That's the other advantage, is if you have a list of people and you have the time to go check out their website and see if it's a shop that fits your product really well, then send them a catalog or reach out with an email or some kind of contact, right?
Super smart. Yeah. And customize it to what they do and where they are. And have you gotten any feedback, Greg, from the buyers, how comfortable they are working, choosing things online, and whether they really secretly want to, see it in person, or are they asking maybe for samples? Like, are they saying, well, I'm not sure, I want to look at your product, or is that kind of something that's going back and forth?
I think it's a little bit, in either direction, honestly. I think people, like we've been talking about all day, really appreciate the tactile aspect of being at a show and being able to see and feel the product, see what it looks like on display. So I think everybody's kind of missing that, but we're getting used to the idea of, at least, if anything, reordering is a lot easier with digital. But yeah, I think people still want that interaction of some kind, as opposed to just viewing a virtual booth.
Yeah, that's right. But but there's so many ways to blend this. So you're walking around the Toronto Gift Show, or you're walking around any live show, and you have your phone with you and you've got, your digital layout, and it's telling you where to go and how to screen and select exhibitors that you want to see. So it's using technology along with the live experience. And can you bookmark an artist? You're going to
Yeah.
go and can you message them? I want to make an appointment with you, because you know how beneficial it is to make a sit down appointment with somebody in your booth, and they're going to shop. There's nothing
Yeah.
better than
Yeah.
that, right?
And yeah, definitely being able to do that research and see, okay, what are the different types of products that are in this show, so that you
Sure.
can kind of see past all, uh, is there a forest for the trees kind of
Maybe you
reference
could
I can
put
make
some
here?
hashtags out there so somebody's walking in and they're looking for, blown glass or something.
Yeah, exactly. You can actually, because it can be overwhelming at a trade show, is what I'm getting at here. You get 2,000 booths and all of a sudden your head's spinning. So to be able to filter out what you're exactly looking for is really helpful. It's a nice aspect.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's where it is. You need to find a way to stand
Mhm.
out in all that noise, to identify your perfect customer. And like you said, follow up with them. And that's really where the majority of your sales are going to come. And I'm thrilled to hear that you have so many artists involved who are staying in this. I know artists who've gotten out of wholesaling because the market, and the closing stores and everything else. So I'm very encouraged. I want to encourage everybody out there. There's been a big shakeout, and unfortunately, there were companies that went out of business. There were artists that went out of business, but it's the people who are the strongest ones and have the most stable businesses that are staying in business. And so I'm thrilled to hear that not only are you making virtual trade shows and live trade shows multi-pronged, so they're more stable and they're going to help people earn a better living. If there's a way to jump into another channel, like maybe you're going to retail at certain times, or maybe you can license some things. I love to see that kind of diversification, because I think it's extremely healthy for business.
Yeah, absolutely. Really important to have different sources of revenue for yourself and try different things and just kind of,
Yeah.
see what's going to work for you.
Yes.
Perfect. Well, we'll leave it on that note. I think that was great. Thank you again so much, Carolyn, for offering the talk up for us this afternoon.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me. And I want to thank everybody for attending. I hope this has put some ideas in your head, and certainly feel free to get in touch. Jump onto my free directory if you're looking for places to sell, and you can use that as often as you like.
Perfect. All right. Thanks so much. Anybody interested, the next